Years ago, the grandfather of the Apollo hoax theory, Bill Kaysing, had this to say about simulating manned flights to the moon.
To create a simulation is really not all that difficult, because if all the input comes from NASA and goes to NASA, and you knew that was the case, all Apollo communications were handled from and to NASA, so they had complete control.
The probe's first pictures were received by Canberra's Tidbinbilla station this morning.
Oh, this was really exciting. We opened our doors to the public and they flooded in because they were very excited about seeing these first images and finding out whether the spacecraft's going to land on Mars.
It seems, yet again, there will be no independent way of verifying NASA's claims. As was reported in the Daily Telegraph on May 27, 2008, Aussie Eye leads the search for life on Mars. Life on Mars? If there is, Australia will be the first to know. Australian scientists are playing a vital role in the latest attempt to find life on the Red Planet. Canberra's Deep Space Communications Complex was the first tracking station to receive signals from a NASA spacecraft which landed in Mars's northern polar region shortly before 10 p.m. yesterday. Less than 2 hours later, the $420 million Phoenix Mars lander began beaming signals to NASA's tracking station at Tidbinbilla, just outside Canberra, which were then on sent to Pasadena, California. For the next 90 days, the dish will receive signals from Phoenix as it searches for life. It seems, just like on the Apollo days, the Australian tracking stations will be the only ones receiving the signal. These Australian radio observatories, of course, are hardly independent verification, as they are part of NASA's deep space network.
From the moment of blast-off at Cape Kennedy until the splashdown in the Pacific Ocean, Australian tracking stations near Canberra will send and receive a constant stream of information on the performance of the Apollo 11 moonshot spacecraft and the condition of its crew. The space tracking station at Honeysuckle Creek has a staff of about 100, and all but a handful are Australians. However, the station and its millions of dollars worth of sophisticated equipment is owned by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration of the United States. When astronaut Neil Armstrong takes his first steps on the moon, Australian stations will be the only ones receiving the television signal.
How important is the role of the Australian stations in this mission?
They're extremely important. In fact, Australia is vital to our role because the Honeysuckle Creek complex here in Canberra is one of 3 complexes in the world which are essential to the Apollo lunar operations.
As the Telegraph said in the beginning, if there is life on Mars, Australia will be the first to know. In fact, the hype about finding life on Mars has become as repetitive as 7 minutes of terror.
Scientists are claiming a major step forward in the search for life on Mars.
A search for signs of life on Mars is underway.
The question remains, did life ever exist on the planet?
Scientists say the probe will help uncover whether the red planet is capable of sustaining life.
Its mission is to find out whether or not Mars was able at one stage to support life.
The probe's mission is to dig up and analyse ice crystals that may prove the planet is capable of sustaining life.
The space probe Phoenix has landed on Mars and now it's looking for life.
The building blocks of life.
To try and determine whether or not sometime in the past Mars was able to support even microscopic life.
Testing soil and ice to see if the red planet could have ever supported life.
So we want to go there and understand, is the region habitable? Could life exist there?
We are looking for the possibility of life in the past or life in the future forming on planets.
They're hopeful that over the next 90 days, Phoenix will do what its predecessors couldn't, find evidence of the building blocks for life on the red planet.
In reality, it has become apparent that NASA is in no way serious in searching for life. If they were, then they would have equipped the Phoenix with life-sensing instruments that would have proved beyond a shadow of a doubt. Dr. Milton Wainwright of the University of Sheffield previously brought this up when his views were published in the letters pages of The Times on May 28, 2008. Sir, despite all the hype, the lander currently sitting on Mars will not prove if there is life on the planet. Report May 26. A few years ago, a power struggle ensued at NASA, which was won by the chemists and geologists who wanted to search for water instead of trying to detect life on Mars. Some amazing data will doubtlessly be provided by Phoenix, but at the risk of being accused of churlish, can I point out that the absence of life-detecting systems on this lander represent the greatest missed opportunity in the history of mankind to date. Of course, if you are not really sending anything to Mars, why bother building instruments that will never be used? As Ralph Renee points out, another problem with NASA's claims of trying to find life on Mars is the fact that they are looking in a hostile environment. The planet Mars has no protective magnetic field, no Van Allen radiation belts, and above all, an atmosphere that is thin enough to be considered a vacuum.
And that means that all the radiation that's in naked space, almost all of it, is smacking into that Mars, during the daylight hours, of course.
As William Hartman writes on page 436 of his book, one silent threat to such deep space operations is radiation. Atomic particles from the Sun and the rest of the universe zip through space, and when they zap human skin, they can break up DNA molecules and cause other damage, which is why the surface of Mars is sterilized. On Earth, we are shielded by our atmosphere. On the surface of Mars, the doses of this type of radiation have intensities about 1,000 times greater than those experienced on Earth. In the March 2006 issue of Scientific American, Gene Parker proposed tunneling under tons of Martian soil to protect astronauts from the lethal effects of cosmic radiation. This, of course, amounts to several meters underground. Interestingly, this is exactly what astrophysicist Dr. Ernest J. Oppik was proposing for a moon base. In the July 19th, 1969 printing of the Tucson Daily Citizen, we find this statement. For long stays on the moon, he recommends living and working areas in bunkers or trenches covered by 6 feet of lunar soil. So apparently, astronauts would need to tunnel 6 feet underground in order to live on the moon or Mars, and yet NASA expects to find signs of life by digging 1 meter under the surface?
As we can see at the moment, that's an image of the Phoenix spacecraft, and that's one of its actual arms, and it's got a digger on it, and it's able to dig down about 1 meter below the surface of Mars.
The most radiation-resistant life forms that I am aware of are viruses, bacteria, and some fish, which can take a dose as high as 100,000 rad. It's hard to imagine even these hardy specimens surviving 5 million years of cosmic radioactive fallout.